Meghan Markle was once the woman who stormed into the British royal family with the power of a cultural reset. She had the Hollywood sheen, the outsider story, the blended identity that felt refreshing to a monarchy steeped in tradition. For a while, she was the face of a new era. And then she left with Prince Harry by her side and a Netflix deal in hand. She was supposed to redefine celebrity influence. But somewhere between the promise and the production, things went tragically wrong. Let's chat about what's actually going on behind the curtain, not the headlines or the PR fluff. What's happening in the actual boardrooms, because according to individuals on the inside, Netflix is over it. The suits that once clapped for Meghan's vision now just want her gone. This isn't gossip. This is a billion-dollar firm tired of playing along. When Netflix tells you you're too old for the act, they don't whisper it. They tell it straight to your face. And that's exactly what occurred. It didn't start with a slap, though. It started with a handshake. Back when Harry and Meghan founded RQL Productions, Netflix sensed a potential. Royalty meets Hollywood, a storytelling goldmine. They imagined prestige documentaries, emotive shows, cultural analysis with depth. But what they received instead was rehashed trauma, incessant requests for control, and a diva attitude that made everything harder than it needed to be. The truth is, Meghan didn't come in as a creator. She came in as a brand, one obsessed with keeping her image shining and her narrative tight. And for a while, that worked. There was curiosity. The Oprah interview burst. The docuseries had its moment. But moments don't pay for long-term contracts, and enthusiasm doesn't make up for terrible numbers. See, Netflix doesn't care about how famous you used to be. They care about what you deliver now. Watch time, completion rates, audience retention. Meghan's projects didn't just underperform, they flopped. Her animated series never made it. Past planning. Her other proposals were either abandoned or held in development limbo. And when anything did get greenlit, the returns were lukewarm at best. No breakout hit, no lasting influence. Just a lot of noise and even more excuses. Still, Meghan continued pressing. Greater creative control, more screen time, more money. She was confident she was still the star of the show, still worth the millions. But the Netflix execs were seeing a totally different picture. A lady stuck in the past, seeking to revisit her suits light up while packaging treatment sessions as content. They weren't buying it anymore. What truly drove things over the edge, though, wasn't simply the figures. It was her behavior behind the scenes. Producers, interns, editors, everyone felt it. The cutting tone, the unreasonable demands, the unnerving silences when things didn't go her way. She wanted control over every second of film, every line of conversation, every narrative rhythm. There was no collaboration, only correction. And in a firm that operates on teamwork, that's the kiss of death. At some point, colleagues at Netflix stopped defending her in meetings. Her name once, said with bustle and excitement, started to carry a sigh. And when the iconic age comment was dropped, "You're nearly 50 and you're too old for this." That wasn't a cheap shot. That was the final verdict. Not because of her age, but because she hadn't evolved. Hollywood respects aging. It just doesn't accept stagnation. Netflix gave her the stage. She brought drama instead of substance. And when you burn through sympathies, funds, and patience all in one go, you're not a misunderstood icon. You're just lousy business. Inside Netflix, the mood went from hopeful to regretful rapidly. Executives who once championed the Sussex purchase now look at it as one of the most disappointing plays they've ever made. Not because they backed a royal, that's always going to grab attention, but because they misread who Meghan genuinely was in a production scenario. They assumed she was here to build tales that mattered. Turns out she was here to recount the same one again and again from a different aspect, with a new villain each time. They anticipated a producer. What they got was a brand manager preoccupied with her own reflection. Meghan wasn't pitching stories. She was pitching herself. Every meeting, every plan, every so-called creative direction somehow looped back to her personal struggle, her victimhood, her narrative, and you can only repackage the same soba story so many times before even the most sympathetic listener tunes out. What made it worse was how she handled the inevitable criticism. Meghan doesn't do accountability. When projects got shelved or rewrites were needed, she didn't take the notes. She took offense. The moment someone questioned her notion, they were suddenly against her. Sexist, biased, jealous. The creative process got toxic. Staff turnover quietly rose. Morale plummeted. And the folks trying to make things work behind the scenes started pulling away. Netflix is a machine that feeds unmeasurable success. And while Meghan might think she still has that X factor, the stats reflect a colder truth. Her shows had low retention, the kind where viewers don't even finish the first episode. Her engagement stats were weak. No genuine buzz after launch, no trending clips, simply a flash of headlines that dissipated before the weekend. It's not only about being famous anymore. There's a new Hollywood in town, one founded on artists who actually create. Real producers, real storytellers, people who understand how to serve the audience, not themselves. Meanwhile, Meghan's approach felt old, like she was still stuck in the Instagram era of contrived sorrow and aesthetic anguish. That script doesn't work when the audience has moved on and behind closed doors. The frustration spilled out. Some insiders at Netflix say they feel tricked. Not monetarily, they realize the risk. But creatively, they believed they were backing someone with a fresh voice. Instead, they received a one-woman PR effort dressed up as a content contract. And with every lackluster pitch, every diva moment, every explanation for why something wasn't her fault, the dissatisfaction got louder. To add to it, Meghan's crew didn't help. Instead of damage management, they doubled on, releasing glowing stories to the press, framing the issue as a misunderstanding or creative difference. But nobody within Netflix bought it. They'd seen the emails, sat through the meetings, watched projects stall over small technicalities and power plays. The fairy narrative Meghan kept trying to sell wasn't lining up with the reality developing behind the scenes. Even the people who wanted her to win started pulling back. She was no longer recognized as someone with potential. She was considered as a liability. And in an industry that moves fast and cuts deeper, that's a reputation you don't want. Her name lost weight. Her calls got responded slower. Her meetings became shorter. The enthusiasm was gone. Netflix didn't smash the door. They just stopped answering it. Quietly, steadily, they moved her work to the bottom of the pile. No announcements, no confrontations, just silence. The kind that says, "We're done here." And Meghan, once the spotlight's darling, is now caught in the one thing she's always feared, being overlooked. Hollywood doesn't forget, but it does move on. And that's exactly what's occurring. Meghan Markle may still believe she's just one project away from a comeback, but the business has already flipped the page. Her name, once a magnet for media excitement and interest, is now synonymous with overpromise and underdeliver. Executives don't regard her as a game-changer anymore. They perceive her as a warning sign. What's worse is that Meghan still thinks she has leverage. She's reportedly threatening to go public to give her side of the story to paint Netflix's cold shoulder as another case of discrimination. But that tactic, it's not landing like it used to. When it was the palace, the tabloids, or the press, there was scope for pity. But now it's Netflix, a streaming company that handed her millions, creative autonomy, and a global platform. The idea that she was mistreated here just doesn't stand up. The stats are harsh. The information didn't connect, and the corporation has receipts. What Meghan refuses to face is the distinction between visibility and value. Just because people know your name doesn't imply they'll tune in. Just because you have a title doesn't mean you have talent. Netflix expected a hitmaker. Meghan thought she could coast on headlines. The difference between those two assumptions created a chasm neither side could cross. And now other platforms are watching the fallout. Disney, Apple, even smaller streaming providers, they're all aware of how the Meghan deal unfolded. Hollywood is a little circle at the top. Word travels fast. Nobody wants to be the next company burnt by a relationship that brings drama without delivering. So, while Meghan shops her next great idea, the meetings are shorter. The enthusiasm is weaker, and the offers, if they come at all, are smaller. There's also the image problem. Meghan's brand was once sophisticated, aspirational, even empowering. Now it feels stale, too manicured, too deliberate. The victim narrative that once propelled her fame has lost its grip. People are asking harder questions. Why hasn't she evolved? Why does every story revolve on her agony, her power, her image? And why, after being given so much, is there so little to show for it? Even supporters are stepping back, not out of hate, but out of tiredness. The incessant need to justify her choices, the constant headlines, the recurrent disputes. It's tiring, especially when the projects she's attached to rarely live up to the anticipation. It's no longer just about being misunderstood. It's about failing to grow. Meanwhile, Netflix is already rebuilding. They're investing in young artists, quiet talents, folks with true production chops, and a clear voice. Meghan's agreement, once their dazzling experiment, is now the example they bring up in corporate meetings when someone advises signing another, unknown celebrity. She's gone from being the face of a daring new chapter to a footnote in a cautionary tale. And still, Meghan won't quit. She's apparently pushing new content, reaching out to media allies, seeking to shift the narrative won last time. But the truth is that story has already been told. The spotlight moved, the camera is cut, and what's left is a lady still trying to manage the edit long after the scene has concluded. Hollywood doesn't wait. It doesn't bend to former glories. It rewards those who adapt, invent, and deliver. Meghan Markle got the rarest opportunity in modern entertainment: royal glory, global publicity, and boundless riches. But instead of developing something enduring, she built a brand around being wronged. And when the audience stopped clapping, she had nowhere to go.